All right, we are back into this. So, um, where were we? Okay, so you opened up the Visual Studio Code and you saw, through the bash window before, and you can close that. You can put that away. That's we're not going to be using it anymore. So now we're in Visual Studio Code, and we can see the project's root right here. And we're going to talk a little bit more about what's going on in here, and so you can get um, used to it. For now, this right here, you should have already installed all the extensions that we talked about in a few videos before. So if you are just basically jumping into this one and you haven't seen the other videos, I suggest you go back a little bit and see where I explained some extensions that we're gonna need in case you don't have these. But technically, this right here is going to be your terminal now. And as you can see, I already have my bash window already running in here. If you don't, if yours says something like node or terminal or something like that, come in here and select default shell and then click git bash and open that git bash window in here so you can already start working with it, from here. It'll make it a lot easier. You can work with PowerShell too, but I like git bash myself. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what's going on here. So the first thing that you're gonna see is these node modules right here. Okay, so this is your npm. All your node packages are going to be in here. None of this right here. This is an incredibly large folder, but none of this right here is gonna ever go to the browser or even to GitHub. Okay, so this is going to be Git ignored, which by the way brings me to this right here. So Git Ignore is basically a file that is uploaded that lives here on your root that tells Git specific instructions on how to handle some of the files and folders within your root folder, on whether they should just live locally in your machine or be pushed over to GitHub, or what's going to happen. A lot of this stuff here is all of this is going to be ignored because they don't need to be transferred over to GitHub and then have to push unnecessary stuff that is going to bloat your GitHub account. It's better to just keep it locally, and then if you ever, let's say for example, you buy a new laptop, or let's say you give your GitHub account, you give access to another developer so they can look into it. All they got to do is just basically run npm install, and they will have these node modules back in their own machine. Okay, they don't have to have your exact copy of node modules. They can have their own. So it's always, they'll be able to download all the packages that you have. And how that happens is because of this package JSON right here. Every time you download a new package, it goes into this package JSON right here, and it leaves a breadcrumb trail of which packages you downloaded as a dependency, or as a saved file, as whatever. And then it even tells you the exact version that it needs to be, or if it's upgradable, upgradable or not. So whatever. So all of this right here, the package JSON will go to the GitHub account, okay? Because if you're another developer needs to pull your code and install node packages into their local machine, they need to know which packages you're using. So this is how you basically tell other people, hey, if you're gonna run my packages, make sure that when you npm install them, you're gonna also install these. Okay, your package JSON is gonna install these in their local copy. So that speaks about the package JSON. And one thing I always like to do here is I just kind of change the name and description over here. You don't really have to though, and the author too. You don't really have to, but I do, because this right here is basically a copy from Gatsby, which is Carl Matthews, the guy who made it, I guess. So, and he's no longer. I mean, I appreciate his efforts into Gatsby and all, but he no longer owns this copy of Gatsby. This is my copy now. So I'm just gonna name this my portfolio. And I also want you to do this because once it goes into GitHub, I want you to actually see some changes into it. So I'm gonna put there you go, my portfolio. Don't worry about this right here. And then I'm just gonna change my name here. You can put yours, obviously. Alright, good enough. Alright, so I'm gonna go ahead and save that. So you can see it's not saved. Control S. There you go. I got some changes made, okay? And the reason why I made these changes also, it's not just because I want you to, because I want to change, this authorship to me or anything like that. It's also because I want you to see what's gonna happen when I actually start sending into GitHub, which we're gonna see in another video. So we're gonna keep talking about this right here. So the pretty ignore and prettier RC, don't worry about this stuff. This is basically just making your indentations and stuff pretty, and whatever. It's just pretty stuff, beautifying your code. Oh, excuse me. Gatsby browser, I never had to really done anything in there before, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. Let's skip over Gatsby config for a second. So Gatsby node, we will be working on this one. This is where you're going to do a lot of your actual code that is going to talk to WordPress in order to provide slugs and things like that for your domain and for your routers and things like that. So we will be doing some work in there. The server-side rendering APIs, there isn't any right now, and we're not going to be using any in this tutorial. But don't delete it, obviously. I mean, you may end up needing it someday, but hopefully I'll make a video one day with this. Don't worry about the license, such as the Gatsby's license, SMIT, meaning it's free. You can use it anywhere. And the README, which is something that we will be using a lot, but I use it a lot. I use README as my own personal notepad. So like I leave comments in here that I know that I need to be reminded of whenever I get back to this project. So like I have worked in like so many projects, like 100 projects on different Angular, React, Vue.js, regular JavaScript stuff, you name it, even PHP stuff and WordPress stuff. I mean, all kinds of different things. So when I change from one project to the next one, right? Sometimes I don't come back to a project in like a month or 2 months or even 6 months or a year. So it's hard to jump into another project and just be like, oh, I know exactly where I left off, or I know exactly what I need to do. So, I leave myself some hints in here. It's like, oh, okay, you know what? This is what you need to do to run it. Even though it seems like it's like common sense, trust me, once you have so many different things going on and so many projects, and they all need different ways to run, and it gets crazy, it gets confusing. So it's always a good idea to leave yourself some notes, so whenever you come back, like, hey, this is how you do it, this is how you run it, this is what you need to do in order to keep developing in it and fix it, and this is the GitHub account that you have it connected to, blah blah blah, whatever. Okay, so oh my god, I just deleted it. Okay. Okay, so yeah, so the README is a really good thing to have, and even if your package, your installation or whatever it is that you ever work in, if you ever make a GitHub account for any project that you're working on that it doesn't already come with the README automatically in it, I suggest you to make one. Okay, and it's always a great thing to have and use. Alright, so now the Gatsby config. So in the Gatsby config here, we're going to be coding into this file a lot, because this is where your plugins get declared and your results and all that stuff. And we're going to go over this in another video, but this is where a lot of stuff gets in there. Your site metadata, and I mean all of this we're going to talk about this in detail in another video. So alright, into the SRC. So the SRC is your actual source folder where things are going to excuse me, I have some allergies here. So anyway, so the source folder is where your main components, your main development folders are, right? So for example, you have here components, and I'm using some global components here, like the header and the layout and some SEO here. So all this stuff here, a footer, if there was one, that will be here. So these are global components that are going to be used in every page you have. I have another folder here for just regular images, and then I have my pages. In this case, I have two pages, three pages. The 404, which is kind of like Gatsby, kind of like requires it that you have one, and your index, which is obviously your landing page, you kind of need to have that. And then this is your second page, which is in TypeScript, by the way, which we're not gonna cover. So I'm gonna delete that eventually. So before anything else, well, let's go ahead and run this in the browser and see how it works. So we're gonna go through, as you can see in the not Gatsby config, in the README, Gatsby develop. That's how you run it. Okay. So we're gonna go Gatsby develop. And what it's going to do basically right now is it's going to compile all of this code, okay, and it's going to create a public folder where it's going to basically webpack all of the stuff that is inside the source folder and all of the configurations and everything that it needs to run on the browser is going to be compiled in a series of HTMLs and JavaScript and CSS and image files inside of a public folder. That public folder is what the browser is going to need, what your server is going to need to run your computer, to run your website in the browser. It's not going to run these React files and stuff like that. Alright, so what's going on here? Did my thing freeze? It's going awfully slow. Wonder why. Apologize for that. It shouldn't be this slow. Oh, here we go. Now I woke up. Yeah, my computer is actually not the fastest. I kind of miss my Mac, but yeah, it's not the fastest of computers, but it gets the jobs done. I just recently added a new hard drive, so I have to maybe put some more memory in it. Upgrade my RAM. Alright, I'm just keeping you entertained while this is going through all these checks. So it's basically going through all these checks right here. These are just preliminary checks to create, for creating pages and stuff like that, and just making sure that everything is running. And then it's going to build a development bundle. And as you have more plugins and more stuff in there, this is going to get a little bit bigger. But the initial one is always going to take this long. Then it's going to be a lot faster. So while that's building, I explain what I mean. So you see this folder that just appeared here called cache. So that's your development cache or your building cache. So it has nothing to do with your browser cache. What it's doing basically is it's just creating all this building stuff that you're doing here, catching it here so that the next time you build, whenever you change something, like if I change a typo somewhere in here, or I delete a plugin, add a plugin, whatever, and I have to rebuild again with Gatsby develop, it won't take this long. It will be a lot faster because most of it has already been done and cached here. Public. So now you can actually see some new stuff here that you never saw before. So the public folder is where all the good stuff that was compiled from my code here, right, got compiled into here. So now you can actually see the index HTML. This is a regular HTML static page. This is your landing page now. And some manifest for icons and stuff like that, your favicon for the top of the browser, and then you have some page data, some icons, whatever, some, a lot of stuff. You're never going to work inside this folder. This is not a folder for you to touch. Okay, this is everything that is going to go here is going to be a product of what you do in here. All right. So one thing that I want you to look at is that you have now access to two different links. You have this local 8000, localhost 8000, and localhost 8000 GraphQL. So if I control click in here, I go straight to my window here. I'm gonna open that into a different window so I can just minimize my personal stuff in there. Okay, so here we go, and you are live. Congratulations, you have a Gatsby website. It works. Okay, and I can go into page 2. Look how fast that goes. So you got it. It's working. All right. Another thing that you have is this. So control click on that, and now you have what is called GraphQL. And this tool, GraphQL, it's what that does is basically um, it's what you're going to be using to map and construct queries from your API data or your sources data. And we're gonna go over this later when we actually get to this part. For right now, this is all I wanted you to do. I wanted to inspect the root and some of the files in here and what they are and what they do, and I wanted you to run for the first time. And we're gonna go into the next video. We're gonna actually start covering. We're gonna clean this up a little bit actually on the next video. Okay, because we don't want all of this crap that we're never gonna use. I mean, this is not what our page is supposed to look like anyway. So we're gonna delete all of this and just make a blank, and start from scratch. And then we're gonna push to GitHub. So we're gonna cover GitHub also after that. All right, I'll see you in the next one.